conversation with Jim Harbaugh yesterday. You got to go where? Oh, you know the words?
Oh, yeah. Hello.
Got to go to that podcast and back that thing up, Ev.
And you got to run that volume all the way to the side.
Smalls knowing the Saved by the Bell theme is actually shocking.
Why?
Because, how do I say this? You don't know much about, like, TV and movies.
No. I don't watch a lot of movies. I'm a big TV person. Love TV.
You know the Housewives.
Grew up on TV. No. I watch shows, too.
What shows? Saved by the Bell you obviously watched.
Growing up, Saved by the Bell, Full House. I was into all those shows.
Okay. Where were you with Uncle Jesse? Were you in love with Uncle Jesse?
Who wasn't? Hello?
No, I'm just making sure. I would have thought...
Have mercy.
I would have thought way less of you if John Stamos, when you were, even now, have you seen Stamos now?
I've seen him.
Unbelievable. The guy's maybe the greatest looking person on earth.
I'll tell you what. Aunt Becky and Uncle Jesse, couple goals.
Really?
Oh my God. No, that's on TV.
Of course I do, but
Milkman, the paper boy, eating at TV.
Everywhere?
Oh, remember TGIF?
Of course. Family Matters?
Family Matters. Oh.
Did I do that with Urkel?
Kids today will never understand getting a pizza, going to Blockbuster, and then settling in for a little TGIF. Man, that was heaven.
So I was telling somebody yesterday.
That was great. TGIF was awesome.
Right?
I was telling somebody yesterday that didn't hear the interview, that we had Harbaugh on, and we were talking about the Saved by the Bell. I just almost fell. And they're like, yeah, he was Screech's cousin on the show, which I didn't remember that.
Screech's cousin?
He was Screech's cousin. Pat, did you remember that since you put this together here?
No, I had no idea.
No. Did you know that? That he was actually Screech's cousin on the show?
Yes, I did.
Wow. You just didn't want to tell us that. I mean, if you think about all the Harbaugh family members, I didn't know Screech with John and Jack and Tom Green and everybody involved in that family. Anyway, all right. So, so if you missed that yesterday, go back on the podcast and listen back to that. So we talked about the marriage between LeBron and Luka in L.A. and how it's already off to a great start. Maybe possibly a divorce in L.A., though. A few of those, but specifically with Matthew Stafford and the Rams. Sean McVay, head coach of the Rams, was on the Fitz and Witt podcast. That's Ryan Fitzpatrick and Andrew Whitworth, the former tackle for the Rams. And he had this to say, McVay did, on the Stafford trade discussions.
We've had conversations where he could probably play however much longer he wants, but it's been on a year-to-year in terms of our dialogue. Is that one? Is that two? Only he can answer that. But there does have to be an element of understanding, well, what does that future look like without this freaking G that's been our quarterback for the last 4 years? And there's no right or wrong way to go about it. But I do think for us to be able to make the most educated decision in terms of, all right, the cash budget that we operate on, the draft comp that you would get in return, you just need to be able to have all the parameters to at least explore it.
All right. Very interesting comments, obviously. So, CeCe, hearing that, biggest takeaway from that / who would be making the bigger mistake if they broke up here, the Rams or Stafford?
Well, it's clearly the Rams, and I don't want to kill what Les Snead and Sean McVay are doing, because it's always tricky moving on from franchise quarterbacks once they get to the twilight of their careers, right? All you got to do is look at what happened with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the late stages of Ben Roethlisberger's career. They're still trying to replace that dude, and we're half a decade removed from him being the starting quarterback. So I understand what they're trying to do, but I also can acknowledge that this Rams team is close. And if you have a legitimate chance to win a championship, you can't hedge when it comes to the quarterback position, because what Stafford is bringing to the table is not easily replaceable. There are only a handful of quarterbacks that were starters last year that won Super Bowls. So the experience, the know-how, and quite frankly, the proof of concept should matter for a team that should be all in to try to get it done with a really good young core of players, especially those guys on the defensive side of the ball. So, yeah, I think the Rams would be making the bigger mistake if Stafford and the Rams team end up getting a divorce this offseason.
This one's tough for me because as a Green Bay Packers fan, I exist in a world where an organization had to make a tough decision and move on from a Hall of Fame quarterback, from a franchise quarterback who had won there. And they did it a little earlier rather than a little later, and it paid dividends for the Packers. So part of me understands where the Rams are coming from, saying, while we recognize how great you currently are and how great you have been for us, there's a price attached to that. And in your age 37 season, are we willing to double and triple down on you at this price moving forward? And it's a very tough decision to be made. And sometimes it does work out, you moving on from somebody of that caliber a little earlier. However, the more I examine this, the more I cannot understand why the Rams would want to go down this road, precisely because of what Cece said. They are right there. This is an organization that has a head coach in place who's arguably the best play caller in the NFL, who has a lot of young talent, who reloaded on that defense, and who has a quarterback who's a top 10 player at the position. And those don't grow on trees, guys. Ask the Pittsburgh Steelers, who we assume are going to be on line one for Matt Stafford if they can make this work. And that's what I guess the Rams have to be cautious of. You could either be the Green Bay Packers or you could be the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you don't really know what the future is going to hold, but you have to be very careful walking away from a guy who you know can get the job done at a high level and thinking that it's just going to be okay based on your organization and your coach and the past success that you've had. Because Pittsburgh has been in this position for many years now where they have had a great coach who's won. They have the organizational structure. They have the talent, but they don't have that piece at quarterback. And the Rams could be looking down the line at their future looking similar to that.
The only difference, though, that I would bring up in your Packers example is the Packers had Jordan Love sitting there, which is why they got rid of Aaron Rodgers.
For years. He was there for years.
With the same coach, with the same tutelage, with the same general manager, with the same young skill position players. Well, not the same. They came later in that, but you get it, like Watson, Dobbs, etc. The Rams have, unless they believe Stetson Bennett is the guy, which I've seen no indication that they do believe that. Jimmy Garoppolo is obviously a veteran. It's been on their team. I think that's where the difference is on this, but I'm glad you brought up the Packers. I am convinced, absolutely convinced, that they think that Aaron Rodgers at $30 million less than Matthew Stafford gets them to the same place that Matthew Stafford does. I think it's Aaron Rodgers. I think that's their guy. This is not reporting. I don't have the information on this. This
You're
is
just reading the tea leaves.
It just feels that way because is Sam let's do it this way. CC, is Sam Darnold going to cost that much less than Matthew Stafford?
Yeah, it could be $10 million a year.
$10 million.
That's significantly less. Yeah.
And that could get you some other pieces. Rodgers will probably cost $30+ million less. Now, there's a reason he's going to cost $30+ million less, right? He's not as good as he once was, and he's not as great to be around the guys as Matthew Stafford obviously is. But I am convinced here that that's what's happening. I am absolutely convinced that their first choice is to have Stafford back. That is their first choice at their price. At their price.
But hold on. If it's their first choice, then why are you haggling about the price?
Well, that's why I believe it's not going to happen. That's why I believe that if you said the Rams of the field, I'm still taking the field. I agree with you. I don't understand this. But there's been too much noise around this to ignore that something is going on here.
And with those comments from Sean McVay?
Yeah, he outlined it. He literally outlined it for us. What we've all speculated. He said, all right, we got to continue because